I think we're about ready to start, but before we do, Pete, I was looking for the office vacuum cleaner earlier. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Where is it?
Sold. I sold it. So I saw it and I sold it on eBay.
Why would you sell the vacuum cleaner?
Well, it's just gathering dust.
I've said it before, Pete. I don't enjoy your jokes, but everyone else does apparently.
I think they enjoy the joke, but they enjoy more the suffering that it inflicts on your sensibilities, which is why I do it, really.
Well, when I say joke, of course, I'm using the term in its very loosest form.
Well, there's no accounting for taste or humour.
Now, Pete, I can't help but notice that you sat there with your iPad, yet I happen to know that you've got the world's most powerful 14-inch MacBook Pro sat in your office over there.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I turned it on, and because it is so powerful, performant, and AI, it knew what I wanted to do before I did it, and then left of its own accord. So
perhaps it heard your joke in advance.
Yeah, maybe on the way over from Korea. But yeah, no, it's installing some stuff. And
excellent.
I will then be breaking out some benchmarks for it.
How very exciting! Looking forward to benchmarking it to see how different it is, in fact, to the version that I'm sporting here, which is the 24-core M1 Max. It's very nice.
I do feel that we're coming to the end. We're on season 2, but we're on episode 35 of the podcast, season 2. And it does feel like, and we'll talk about this a bit later, we're coming to the end of this season, this look, this feel, and maybe I just keep the iPad for the rest of this season just to see it out. And then from next season, we've got some exciting things coming.
Well, you've just pitched our position there, and now we're going to have to make sure we've got some exciting things coming.
Everything we do is exciting. I'm sure our subscribers will agree with that.
Speaking of subscribers, thanks to any new subscribers, there are a few.
Yes, welcome.
Quite amazingly, people enjoy listening to us waffle, Pete. It's a source of great mystery to me. In today's waffle, we're going to be talking about our main subject is, has Apple Silicon killed x86? And I think this is something we kind of touched on when M1 came out. But obviously M1 hasn't killed x86. Of course, these new M1 Pro, M1 Max chips have moved goalposts when it comes to notebook computing.
They have.
So I think it's a valid question to ask, and that will be our main topic. And tying into that is our news section this week.
Yes.
So quite exciting this is that Intel's 12th generation processor, so this is codename Alder Lake, if I've pronounced that correctly, they're going big little, like ARM, having massive performance cores and energy efficient cores.
Yeah.
That's quite exciting, isn't it?
It is. And a lot of people have got really excited about it. So we're going to talk about that for a minute.
Let's. So this is basically the way that ARM CPUs work. You have big little, so performance cores and efficiency cores. Apple's been doing that, although with the Pro and the Max chips, they've kind of gone mainly down the performance core route, haven't they? It's just 2 efficiency cores.
They have, although they've still managed to have amazing battery life and thermal performance because of that.
As long as you're not pushing it.
Well, yeah, but you don't want to give too much away for upcoming stuff.
Oh, no, we don't. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So if you're not doing much with your MacBook Pro, it will last a long time on the battery.
I find if you don't open the lid, it lasts for ages. But these Alder Lake chips, so they've got performance cores that are hyper-threaded and then efficiency cores that are single-threaded. Yeah.
So that gives you, what's the core count? I can't even remember, but it's you get a slightly odd thread count, don't you? So we've got the i9-12900K.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it have 8 performance and 8 efficiency?
Yes, which gives you 24 threads. So you're getting 16 threads on the performance cores and 8 threads for the 8 efficiency cores. Hopefully that all made sense. At the moment, I think Windows 11 is optimized for this kind of architecture, interestingly. So it's obviously something that's been in the planning for a while. But Windows 10 doesn't have optimizations for this. So if you're planning on splashing out for one of these new CPUs, you're probably going to only get the best performance from Windows 11.
Interesting. So I think what is interesting about this is we were sort of saying, Intel must be panicking when Apple released all these M1 Pro and Max chips a few weeks ago, but maybe they knew this was coming and they're not panicking as much as we thought.
No, I mean, look, let's be clear here. Intel and AMD, I suspect they've had M1 chips in. I suspect they've disassembled them, stuck them under the microscope, and they've analysed exactly what's going on in these things. There's no great secret to it.
For some reason, when you said that there, I just had to come pop into my head, don't disassemble number 5. You remember that? Short circuit?
I do remember that. He didn't M1. Sound quite so camp, as I recall it.
I bet he did. So anyway, wattage. Because that's the key, isn't it? Battery life, low thermal consumption and power consumption.
This is the whole point of Big Little, isn't it? Because at the moment, my laptop is just sat here with OneNote open, so it's using no power whatsoever. It will sit here all day on battery doing that. I can't remember what the wattage is, but it's very low for when it's just sat here doing nothing. But these are desktop chips, but it's 125 watts, that i9-12900K.
Ooh.
And Linus Tech Tips, they showed it hitting over 200 watts in some tests.
I'm just going to bring up the M1 Pro chart.
Yeah, I don't think it's 30, isn't it?
No.
So that's a big difference, hitting over 200 watts in some tests, which means that it needs a really good cooler. And they had on it the best air cooler that's available, and it was getting quite hot. So
interesting.
So yeah, it's an interesting point. What they're showing is that it's ahead of Ryzen 9, the 5950X, in a lot of gaming tests.
Is that good?
I don't think the 5950X is the best gaming CPU, actually, so I'm not sure that's entirely relevant. And what I have noted actually since then is, as it turns out, it's not quite as quick as the 5950X, but it is faster than the 5900X. So it's right up there with the very best of AMD's Zen 3.
It's between the 5900 and the 5950. It's somewhere between those.
Yeah,
is what we're saying.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And these are all desktop chips. Let's talk gaming, because if you're a gamer, then you probably don't need an i9 at the end of the day. Most gamers would be quite happy with an i5. So there's the i5 12600K. And where this is quite exciting is that it does beat out the equivalent Ryzen 5, and it's only $20 more.
Okay.
So at retail, it's $320 for an i5 12600K, and that gets you a very excellent gaming CPU.
Mm.
And I think that's
compelling.
It is compelling. It means Intel are back in the game. For people who are building their own PCs, especially gamers, they've been going AMD in a lot of cases. Intel are now bringing the fight back, and this is wonderful.
I'm really pleased to hear this, because we've ribbed Intel a lot in the last few podcasts with their crazy marketing and stuff like that. But this is good news for everyone, because it's competition, and competition drives innovation.
Yeah. It seems also as well they finally got their 10 nanometer process working, because these are desktop chips on 10 nanometer, and previously I believe we've only had laptop or mobile chips on 10 nanometer.
Okay.
And Intel's 10 nanometer is probably equivalent to TSMC's 7 nanometer in terms of density. So it's not the gap isn't as wide as it seems. However, Apple Silicon is on 5 nanometer, so yeah. If Intel get to that same kind of equivalent, then they will be faster than Apple Silicon.
But like I say, this is good for the whole industry. It's good for consumers. It's good for professionals. It's good for everyone, because with choice comes competition, and helps with pricing and all that kind of stuff.
It does. I have to say though, my initial excitement when I heard the news, it's like, because I knew that Intel's been working on this. This isn't the first time they've done this. They've had prototype CPUs with Atom cores as the efficiency cores. And maybe that's the same. That's what they're actually doing here. I don't know. But this whole idea of having efficient x86, that would be fantastic. But then I saw those tests that Linus Tech Tips did, and it's like, well, there is no low power consumption. These are high power consumption CPUs. So what we're doing is we're getting that top level performance, and let's be clear here that i9-12900K will outperform the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips. but they're doing it at the same way x86 always does it, with huge amounts of power draw and heat.
Yeah. So it's like a big engine as opposed to an efficient turbocharged littler engine.
Yeah, interesting. But there are also 12th generation older late laptop chips on the way, and some of those scores have been coming out, and the problem is that I've seen scores which show it pretty much on par with the M1 Max.
Okay.
M1 Pro, sorry, 10 core. But I've also seen cores that puts it more in line with the standard M1.
Okay. So, any thoughts on why that might be?
No idea whatsoever. These are all pre-production machines. You've got no idea where these tests have come from or what was happening when they did them. I'd probably peg it closer to the top end rather than the bottom end.
Yeah, they're not going to want to be competing with the M1, really, are they? They're going to want to take a step up.
Yeah. But I would also expect that a laptop that would have a 12th gen i9 in it is going to be bigger. I think it's going to be hard for them to put it in the same kind of thermal envelope as Apple have done. But I'll be very happy to be wrong there. As you said, competition is very good, and of course AMD, their CPUs appear to be dropping in price all of a sudden.
That's good.
It
is good, considering how hard it has been to get certain components.
I suspect it's being done for a reason, to keep people buying AMD. I don't think they've been massively... The big chips, the 5950X, I was waiting for one of those because I wanted to build my own PC based on that, and I just couldn't get hold of one.
Yeah,
which is why I ended up...
Do you think you might do one now? Or you just stick with the ThinkStation?
I'll stick with my ThinkStation because it's better.
Yeah, it's a very smart machine, that.
And it also doubles up as a space heater in my cabin, as you can testify to.
Yeah, and a white noise generator.
Yeah.
AMD are announcing some stuff though as well, aren't they? They're not just slashing prices. They're still staying relevant.
Yeah.
96 and 128 core EPYC chips.
I think we just say Epic.
EPYC.
I think that spells epic though.
It does not spell epic. Epic is EPIC. I'm EPYC.
Well, they've swapped the I for a Y so they can trademark it.
Of course they have. Who swaps an I for a Y just so they can trademark a name?
Lots of people. It's like people who swap C for K. Like the hairdressers, that would be
S
called
for X.
Crazy Cuts with a K.
Yeah. Actually, I just realised that we've done it for one of our projects, haven't we?
We have. We probably better not mock anyone else when we're doing the same thing. Anyway,
it was a slightly self-effacing mock.
I didn't want to be pedantic, Pete, but just to be pedantic, I think it's epic.
Well, I've just shown that I know nothing, haven't I? Which is, how this has always been. You're the fountain of knowledge, and I just pretend to know stuff and nod at the appropriate point.
I just do my research, Pete. That's the main difference.
But that's why people like the podcast, because you've got the knowledgeable geek, and then you've got the cool, trendy one.
And, which one are you?
No dead space on the podcast, please.
Okay. I thought Erin was the cool, trendy one. She is a lover of fashion.
Yes, yeah. She actually there was some. I don't know if you noticed. There were some comments a couple of videos ago. It might have been from the live event where people said, "Why are you so horrible to Erin? Can you stop being horrible to Erin?"
No.
To which no, basically not. And if you knew Erin, and if you've ever been stabbed by Erin, you'll know why we're not nice to her.
I was watching iCave Dave's live podcast last night, just caught the last 20 minutes or so. Someone asked me in the comments section, will Erin be getting a M1 Max Action laptop? I said, no, she will not.
No. Too many jokes.
Yeah, we don't. And she was also called the intern as well, which I thought was quite amusing.
It's best not to let Erin near anything that uses electricity. It's always a good thing, or has sharp edges, or blunt edges for that matter.
Just don't let her near anything.
Yeah.
Why do we employ her? Let's move on. So these Epic chips, they are data center chips. And this is actually quite interesting, as we will go on to talk about in our main topic. Well, it's all part of the main topic today. And they've said as well that Meta or Facebook as they're actually known, is one of their data center customers. So they apparently are ordering these new EPYC chips. I mean, they are basically Threadrippers with a bit more servery stuff on them, as far as I'm aware. So to have a 128-core EPYC chip, that would be pretty
well, Facebook
epic.
are going to need that for their metaverse.
No, Pete, you missed my joke. Sorry, I need to do that again. Having a 128-core EPYC chip would be epic.
But they're going to need that for the metaverse, aren't they? Sorry, when are you going to do the joke? Just so I know. Just tell me when I'm ready. When you are.
It's a lot like when you do the jokes, Pete.
I'm ready when you are. Okay. Just go on, do it for me. I'm ready for the joke.
The joke has happened.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, it was very good. Actually, it was very good.
I thought it was incredibly witty, but now people we've laboured the point so much.
Well, we like ruining each other's jokes. There used to be a space flight simulator back in I think it was probably back in the
1930s.
Yes, yeah, on my literally
Punch
Valve-based
card.
computer.
Did you load it in on a punch card or some sort of punched tape?
Something's going to get punched in a minute. EPYC. There was a game called EPYC. Do you remember that? It was like an elite style space flight simulator. You get to fly a spaceship and blow aliens up. It was late 90s, possibly early noughties. Anyone remember EPYC? It was quite good at its time. I think it was quite good.
And it's triggering some memory cells in the dusty part of my brain.
It was Wing Commander-esque, but different.
Right.
Yeah.
You do like those sort of games?
I do. Yeah, I do. I'd like to be in space.
I'd like for you to be in space.
Without the suit. Yeah.
Just before we carry on with our main topic, that's sort of the news, really. And we need to carry on talking about x86 and stuff, but I just wanted to address a couple of comments that I've had. In my first video, and indeed I've noticed other people saying the same thing. But before I
know what you're going to say.
I'd like
because I did watch your video. Dave thinks I don't watch his videos, but I do because I always comment on them.
Just tug on that MagSafe there. No, I see what you did there. You pulled it up, didn't you? Go on, just tug it. Now, just use your muscle memory a moment, and you tell me, based on your last MagSafe laptop, would you say that is a much stronger magnet?
That is. Is that like an earth magnet or something? It's like a rare earth magnet.
I'm not.
I reckon a USB-C plug comes out easier than that.
I agree with you. It's not a.
It kind of defeats the point of what made MagSafe great, doesn't it?
Yeah, but of course, what everyone is saying to me is you're pulling it out wrong, Dave. You're pulling it out wrong because what you should do is exactly what you did, and that's exactly what I do. Incidentally, is you pull it up when you're taking it off.
But the point you're making is when the dog walks past on the old MagSafe, if the dog or the toddler or the wife walks past while you've got it plugged in and they catch the cable, it used to just pop out, so you didn't have to worry. Whereas now your laptop's going to go flying.
Yeah. So if I can just demonstrate this, and I'm going to put my hand here. I'm just going to hold the laptop so things don't go wrong. But suppose you've got your laptop on your desk, and of course, let's move my microphone. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, you won't be able to see what we're doing here. But it's youtube.com/The Constant Geekery Podcast.
You're in for a visual treat if you join.
You probably won't even be able to see it. But what I'd like you to do, Pete, is just this laptop is on a desk. So the cable is running across the desk and then it's going down, let's suppose, to a wall charger. But suppose you tripped on it, Pete. Is it going to pull it up like that if you trip on it? No. If it pulls it down...
Your laptop...
it's not going to pull it down. Which way is it going to pull it?
It's just going to pull it laterally. Not laterally. It's just going to be at right angles.
No, so pull the cable down against the edge of the desk. Look. Do you see what I mean? That's what's happening. So
do you know, I would actually risk on the face of El Capitan using that as a safety rope for Erin. That's how much faith I have in the strength of that.
It is really, really strong. And I think if you've got your laptop on your lap and it's plugged into the wall nearby in your lounge...
It's going to go flying.
Well, no, you've probably got more chance of it being able to bend downwards or upwards if someone trips over it. But if it's on a desk, there's only one way it's going, and that's straight out, and it's going to pull your laptop off the table, which defeats the point of MagSafe.
It does. But I do have a solution.
Go on.
So what is a known thing with magnets if you bang them regularly?
No idea.
if you drop them. If you apply a blunt force to a magnet, it will lose strength.
Does it?
Yeah,
I didn't know
genuine thing. So the solution is to drop your MacBook a few times, and then the MagSafe will get to a more suitable strength.
Okay, well, there we go. That's a top tip from the Constant Geekery podcast.
You're welcome. If anyone's tried that, let me know.
So let me come back to the main question, Pete. I'm gonna put it to you, and then you're going to answer it. Hopefully using English rather than interpretive dance, but
Please.
or song as you did before the podcast. We don't need to hear that.
But it is coming. You know that, don't you?
Is x86 dead?
No.
Has Apple Silicon killed x86?
By virtue of the question I just answered, ergo, no.
No. So that's the TLDR rule. Don't listen, don't read, don't watch.
Cheerio, see you next week.
Yeah, of course it hasn't killed x86. It's the idea that the x86 is just going to die out is nonsense. And when we say x86, just so everybody can understand, we're talking about Intel's chips, AMD's chips, running on the x86 64 architecture. Actually, interesting point on that. That's actually an architecture that was designed by AMD. Intel's own 64-bit architecture didn't get any traction, so they adopted AMD's. How about that?
Good old AMD.
Yeah.
I do like AMD.
Yeah, I do too. So the big elephant in the room.
Is Erin when she's had too many brownies?
That is harsh. Especially if Erin turns sideways, you kind of lose sight of her.
She is quite funny. She has to walk around with her arms out like that in case she falls down any drain holes.
We're so mean to Erin.
Yeah. But it's all right. She signed a waiver, so it's fine.
We don't mean it, Erin. You're just right the way you are. Elephants. Getting back to elephants.
Power efficiency is the elephant in the room.
It is. Does that matter, though, if you need maximum performance?
I think where we are in the state of computing at the moment, no. However, with the environmental concerns, anyone in their right mind would have at the moment, anything that uses less energy, and when we're talking about scaling up, anything that uses less energy it's a cumulative effect. So it is something we should be interested in. But if maximum performance is your concern, then it's going to come at cost. That's the laws of thermodynamics and physics, isn't it?
It is. And there are some people who want maximum performance. So gamers, for example, let's use that as an example. Yes, you can. I mean, people have been showing us that you can game on these new laptops from Apple, but of course the software support just isn't there. So really you need a PC, so you're in x86, whatever happens, and people want powerful graphics cards that, these things are big as well, aren't they? The latest graphics cards are huge things.
You could do someone some serious injury if you took a swing with them with a 3080.
Yeah, you probably could.
I might try that later.
Could x86 ever compete with ARM for power efficient performance?
I don't see that it can. I just think the two architectures are so fundamentally different. Again, I bring a car analogy. It's like comparing a four-cylinder motor to a V12. The V12 is always going to be more consumptive of fuel, but it's going to deliver huge amounts of performance over even a well-optimized, super efficient four-cylinder. They're just two different things.
They are very different, and I think maybe the evidence is here with what Intel's been doing with Alder Lake. It's early days, of course, so we shouldn't just take that one test as being gospel, but it certainly seems like they're not really creating any kind of power efficiency by adding these efficient cores. That said, of course, what Linus Tech Tips would have been doing is brutalizing the thing to the max, and not testing it in a power efficient way, probably. I don't think it will compete. I think you can get closer. I think they can narrow the gap, but fundamentally, ARM is more efficient in the way that it works. the way
Yeah.
that it processes instructions. And let's not get super technical here. If you want to get that information, you'll find it on the main channel. So youtube.com/constantgeekery. I've done videos about why M1 is so fast. I think that's the one you want to have a look out for, which just explains the differences in the architecture in more simple terms. Helps you to understand why it is the way it is. But if x86 can't compete, where does this actually matter?
What, the efficiency?
Mm.
Well, there's three areas, I think. The first is what you touched on earlier, is the ultra compact, ultra portable computing arena.
Yeah, so anything like, I mean, this is a 14-inch laptop. It doesn't have a very big battery in it. I mean, compared to the 16-inch, it's really, I'll probably almost go as far as to say it's a little bit insufficient for the M1 Max chips.
Did you just say that? Did you just say that on YouTube?
I did. Well, I'm not the only one that's saying it. I noticed anecdotally, and I said this in my video I put up yesterday, but anecdotally I've noticed that the M1 Max does not last as long as the entry-level M1 Pro version of this laptop that we also have. And then Luke Mayani did a test. I watched one of his videos last night or this morning. He was testing the three different types of the 14-inch, and he showed unequivocally. Is that right? Have I said that right?
Equivocally.
Is that right?
Unequivocally.
It's one of those
You
words.
more or less said it right.
Okay.
There's no point getting specific about words. We just finished my espresso.
Oh, don't do it. We had this. Anyway, he showed without any doubt, let's say it that way, that the M1 Max uses a lot more of that battery. And this isn't exactly. We're not revealing some massive secret here, are we?
This
more
is like
cores.
when you read in the news that scientists have spent 3 years researching water and discovered that it's actually wet. It's like the M1 Max is a bigger device than the Pro. Of course, it's going to use more power and drain the battery quicker. For goodness sakes, no disrespect to Luke Mayani, he's great, but honestly,
Yeah.
pack it in.
Anyway, when you've got a tiny notebook like this, you want maximum battery life. You need that efficiency. x86, actually, there are quite a few Windows laptops that have a pretty impressive battery life if you're not working them too hard, which is the same as this. You can't work it too hard.
Bit like you, really.
Bit like me, yeah. Can't work me too hard.
You have been working very hard recently. I do have to say that, guys. Particularly on the main channel, you have been working like a Trojan to get content out. And I know YouTube has been rewarding you for your efforts.
Has it, though?
You've got at least 10 more subscribers. But, I just want to say on the podcast, to everyone that's listening on the podcast, because they will agree with me in the comments, you work really hard and they really appreciate your content. So there you go. That's gone into the public domain. Don't ask for it again.
Thank you. And how did you want me to transfer that £25?
Just
I'll send it to your Cayman account. That's fine.
Thank you.
Anywhere else where we need super efficiency?
Yeah, I touched on it earlier. So things like data centers where you've got high volume. Obviously, energy consumption is a big concern for data centers, but so is also heat generation and dissipation. So anything that's more efficient obviously costs less to run. It's kinder to the planet, and also you then haven't got so much heat to deal with, which again means less cost, less stuff getting pumped out into the atmosphere. So that's all good.
Yeah, data center is an interesting one. I think we ought to do a video on this at some point. The way the data centers are set up, so the servers in a data center they look a lot like pizza boxes, don't they? They're that kind of shape, the slimmest ones. And they go into these racks, and then
Sorry.
Calm down, Pete. And the racks will be facing each other, so you have the fronts facing each other and then the backs facing each other. So you have where the fronts face each other, that's the cold aisle. So you'll have air conditioning going into that aisle, and then the backs, well, that's the exhaust aisle, and it's super hot. So you kind of go in the data center. If you're working at the back of the server, you're sweating, and you go to the front and you're freezing cold.
Yeah.
It's quite, it's a big thing. They spend an absolute fortune on it, and electricity is the biggest cost and limiting factor in data centers, certainly around in the data centers we're using. And we pay more for the power than we do for the connectivity.
Yeah, it is crazy though. The closest I've ever got to the experience of going into the cold aisle of a data center than the hot aisle is just a little bit of a side note here, but I'm sure there's a place in southern Spain, a place called Ronda.
I've been to Ronda.
Sounds like it should be in South Wales, which it also is, but it's spelt differently. Beautiful place. And not far outside Ronda is a cave. I think it's called the Cave of the Cat, but obviously in Spanish. And that is a massive under-mountain cave system with a river that goes all through these mountains and then comes out of this cave into a waterfall. It's very beautiful, nice to go swimming. But in the summer, you go there, it's absolutely scorchio hot in Spain. And you stand in front of this cave, and it is chilled, icy air coming out of this cave because it's been in this mountain system. So all the water is absolutely freezing. It would be a great place to build a data center. But don't, because it's really pretty and you don't want to do that. But yeah, it would be really good.
Well, that's why I think it's Microsoft, isn't it, that's got data centers on the seabed.
Yes, under the water.
Absolutely brilliant. But the problem is when something goes wrong, they've got to bring the whole data center back up. But they're in sort of tubes, I think, so you can float them back up. Really interesting topic, data center. And of course, data centers are being used for an awful lot these days. You know, you think of the number of servers that the likes of Google and Facebook and Amazon need to be maintaining.
Well, just listening to this podcast now or watching it, whatever you're doing that on, whatever platform, there are data centers around the world that unfortunately have to hold this content so that it can be served up so you can listen to it right now.
That's it, and their YouTube will be using and anyone else will be using a content delivery network. So wherever the central place is, it will then syndicate it out. So if you're in Australia, you don't get the massive delay because it will come from an Australian data center. It is, it's quite amazing.
Do we have anyone from Australia? Oh, we do. Yes, we do.
And some people don't know this, but I'm just going to chuck this in as well. The UK is connected to the internet via undersea cables going to America. And they make landfall in Cornwall.
That's
It's
good.
literally cables on the seabed. That's the excitement. So that's why it takes, in the UK, it takes quite a long time to load up stuff from Australian servers. So
Unless there's a
distance.
content delivery network.
That's right, yeah. CDN, yeah. So data centers, massively important. Being able to run those more efficiently, changing from spinning hard disks to SSDs, that made a huge difference to power consumption. Which is why I was sort of raised an eyebrow at Facebook buying into the new EPIC chips, because I doubt they're going to be power efficient in any way.
Yeah, it's almost like they say one thing and do another.
Weird. Although 128 cores, 256 threads, those servers will be able to do some serious work.
Well, if this metaverse thing actually ever gets off the ground, and I can tell you that I'm so excited about that, I'm you can probably tell from my whole body language and voice, I cannot wait. My breath is literally bated. Then they're going to need those many cores to do all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Erin's so excited over there. She's literally staring into space, looking like she wants to,
Talk about clothing. She'll get more excited. What's the new? I don't know anything about fashion or clothes.
She's wearing a cardigan. Yay! There you go. She's smiling again.
Another area where it could be important is supercomputers, which is basically the same as data centers. There's lots of different computers all connected together by very fast interconnects.
Yeah, and obviously if anyone's seen 2001 A Space Odyssey, which is a prediction of the future, then you're going to have supercomputers like HAL going off into space and killing everyone. But they're going to need to be, cooling things in space is actually a challenge because you've got a vacuum, so it's difficult. You have to have massive heat sinks.
I do feel that we may be slightly digressing here on the topic,
I'm sorry.
Back into Spaceland.
Yeah, everyone likes a bit of science fiction, except you.
I'm perfectly happy with a bit of good quality science fiction. It's just that some of it isn't good quality. That's all I'm saying.
Just while we have digressed, name something.
Something
of a science fiction genre that you think is good.
I quite enjoyed the Netflix robot thing, Lost in Space. That's it.
Yeah, season 3 coming out next month.
Is it though?
Well, that's what Netflix is saying.
Well, they were saying it was coming out this year, and then they removed that message.
Well,
Look, I enjoy science fiction, and I've probably watched more of it than people think I have. But I just, it's only really Star Wars that I just don't get.
I find your lack of faith Disturbing.
Thanks for that. Did actually work for a company, and we did the website for Darth Vader many years ago.
You mean David Prowse?
That's the chap.
Yeah, he's a nice chap. Well, he was. I think he's passed away now.
He has. Lovely chap from Bristol, and Bristolians have a very particular accent. And
look it up on YouTube. Darth Vader with his original voice. You can see why it wouldn't work. You got James Earl Jones. Take them away, and then you got David Prowse, bless him, going, Gertlush, get rid of them, all right? Just send them on their way.
He was so softly spoken as well, and it's no surprise that they
he wasn't menacing at all. In fact, he was a bit of a hero in the UK, wasn't he? Because he was the Green Cross Code Man as well as.
Let's not go there. You're showing your age now. So, how about will Windows and Linux get powerful ARM chips like M1? What do we think about that?
Well, Linux is already being actively ported to M1, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So yes, to Linux.
Yeah, but you want to be able to do it on PC hardware. I'm wondering, will there be ARM chips? Because if you're going to have competition for x86, it ain't going to come from Apple, because that requires then everybody in the world to move over to Apple from PC, and that's simply not going to happen. So the only way that, in fact, it won't be Apple Silicon, of course. The only way ARM or power-efficient architectures like that can kill off x86 is if they come to the PC.
Yeah.
And I think that might happen. There's a lot of interest in ARM, isn't there? I mean, after all, NVIDIA are trying to buy
them. Mm-hmm. Windows have done a lot. Microsoft have tried to do a lot with ARM architecture.
They have, and at the moment they've not really got very far with it, because they're pairing up with Qualcomm to do chips and stuff. But I have heard on the grapevine that Microsoft are developing their own chips.
Yes, we did. We talked about that last week or the week before. I was just looking back through our notes and I can't find it, but I'm sure we talked about it.
And of course, Google has just released its Tensor chip, even if it is actually a rebranded Samsung chip. But there you go. These people are looking at doing things. Samsung has been doing its own chips for a while. Qualcomm, of course, is producing standard ARM designs, and they've recently hired people who used to work on Apple Silicon. So I'm imagining that they want to bring something to the PC. Microsoft has kept Windows for ARM alive ever since the original Windows RT.
Things are coming, I would say.
I think it is, yeah.
The pot is being stirred.
And a lot of people are then saying, what about Risk V or Risk 5? Is it Risk 5? I don't know. I've only ever seen it as Risk V.
I
don't know much about it.
EPYC earlier and you corrected me, so I'm not even going to bother. I was going to go Risk V.
I've not spent my time researching it because I've spent a lot of time testing Apple Silicon in the last year. The basic gist of it is it's a very similar architecture to ARM. It's a RISC architecture, and it's open source. That's the big thing. Whereas with ARM, you've got to pay a license to ARM. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. Either you're buying a standard ARM design, or you're doing what Apple does and you're licensing the architecture and the information instruction set. So with Risk V, that doesn't happen. You can basically do what you like with it, and it's open source, which can be a good thing and can be a bad thing.
Yeah, it just remains to be seen. So.
But I'm not seeing massive movements. When we hear about people developing their own chips, it usually seems to be ARM. And I guess that's
licensed ARM designs, or
bit of a proven technology. Perhaps.
I think so. I think a few people in the comments on both channels have asked about Risk 5 or Risk V. And maybe that's something we'll do a bit of digging on and see if we can come up with something a little bit more objective, maybe next season, or maybe we can talk about it in what we've got coming before the end of the year. But we'll have a think about that.
Yeah. So let's have a bit of a quick Apple Silicon reality check, because a lot of this x86 is dead. Apple have totally destroyed Intel. All of these kind of
it's all
hyped
and
comments.
Sensationalism, isn't it?
Apple has done no such thing. What Apple has done with the M1 chips is they've moved the goalposts on what we can expect from mobile computing.
Yeah, and I think what they've done is they've done what they want to do for their business and their users, to be clear. But Apple Silicon, as fantastic as it is, as I found out yesterday, and I don't want to give too much away, but you showed me a few things yesterday with some of your testing, it is great, but it's not foolproof.
No.
It has its limits.
Yeah, and a lot of the benefit that you're getting from it is due to the optimizations. So, and when you move outside of those optimizations, it is a bit like falling off the cliff. And hopefully, we'll try and show some of that in our testing. I do think we need to say at the price point of the entry level M1 MacBook Air, and you can pick those up it's cheaper, like £100, $100 cheaper on Amazon.
They're amazing.
It's such an amazing computer, and you're getting more performance, real world more performance than you were getting from the i9 8-core mobile chips.
Yeah. So
at that kind of price point, it's amazing.
So if you don't need to tap into the performance, it's a very good value machine, but there's plenty of x86 equivalents out there that are equally as performant.
There are now, but not at the same price point, I would say. But I think that will come, and I think that's really what Apple Silicon has done at the lower price point. Everything's relative, of course. Some people would say, £900, £1,000 is not a low price point, but certainly they're bringing the price down. You wouldn't have got an i9 8-core for that kind of price.
No,
not for love nor money. So, yeah, it is fantastic. But we saw with M1 that it got massively hyped, and some of that hype just didn't stand up to reality. I've got the M1 Mac Mini sat on my desk in my office at home, the 16 gig version, and I'll be honest, it's not had a lot of use. Other than for testing, I don't really use it because it's not powerful enough for my workflow.
I can attest to that.
So M1 is not the answer to everything. And these new M1 Pro and M1 Max chips, the same thing will apply. So, yeah.
But do we have to have, does everyone have to have the most power?
No, and this is something that I think has changed in the way that we buy computers. And I think Apple has been very clever here because they've probably led the way with this. And what they're doing is they're looking at their iPhone and they're noticing how people will upgrade every couple of years. And they're thinking to themselves, that's good for business. They can say all they want about environmental conscious and everything else, but the truth is they want people to replace their computer every couple, 2-3 years. And so they've brought that in. And the way that they sell those phones each year is by making sure there's a bigger number, basically, so that you feel like you're missing out. It's FOMO, isn't it? It's fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So you think, I need to upgrade, regardless of the fact that you won't use, in all likelihood, the new features that the phone offers. You'll just do what you always do with the phone.
Yeah.
Send text messages, make phone calls, watch the odd YouTube.
And, of course, they'll throttle the performance of your old phone with the new operating system to sort of reinforce the belief that you need more power.
I think you should add it allegedly there, just so we don't get into trouble.
No, they've admitted that they do it to preserve battery life. Obviously, I'm being a bit cynical about that. Yes, allegedly. But at the same time, I don't think it is the primary driver isn't money, it isn't about business. They need you to swap in the computer every couple of years so that they can recycle the aluminum for the next ones.
Aluminum?
That's what they call it.
I don't think that's the case. I think my what I said was more righter than what you said.
I was being slightly cynical.
Were you? So this is why people are now buying computers in that way. Does anybody really understand what they're buying? I think Apple just publishes these numbers, and the assumption is more numbers equals better.
Yes.
And then there's all the benchmarks. So you've got a proliferation now of tech YouTube channels. And sorry about that. We're adding to the problem. And we're benchmarking these devices all the time and showing numbers. The same thing happens in every industry. Like I'm a keen motorcyclist, so I used to read all of the motorcycle magazines, and what you get is road testers riding the latest new bikes, and they'll come out with some wild statement like the Fireblade is so much better than the Gixxer this year, but it's not. The average person would get on that bike and never be able to get anywhere near the performance of these very experienced road testers who are riding on circuits to find the absolute limits of these machines. So they talk about it like there's this massive gulf in difference, but the average person won't ever see any of that. Just buy the one that you like the look of. And that's true now with computers as well. You've got people who are going out to buy these computers, and I'm going to include us in this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That are buying things that perhaps, we don't really need the level of performance that we're getting. And we're doing it because you don't want to have the one with the lower number on it.
No. Do you know, it's almost like someone needs to do a buying guide.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it be good if there was some kind of buying guide to help you understand what you really might suit what you actually do and choose the right Mac based on that rather than numbers? If only something like that was coming.
If only. And here's a way to look at it that might help. Is when I'm going to use the car. We always do car analogies. We need to
people get cars mostly.
Okay. If you live in a city like London, you do not want to have a Volvo V90, a big estate car. You don't want that. You want a smaller city car. You want something that's appropriate to the use case. And you're not going to go out and get something that can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, because in London, you can't get to 60.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who comes from the Isle of Guernsey. And for those that don't know, the Isle of Guernsey is 7 miles long by 4 miles wide. And it has a top speed limit of 35 miles an hour. And he says there's plenty of Bugattis and Ferraris and all sorts of exotica on that island that can never be driven faster than 35 miles an hour. Not just because of the speed limit, because the road will physically not let you. But your point is well taken in that
I'm talking about normal people.
Yeah, you don't buy a Ferrari on the Isle of Guernsey because you want to drive it fast. You want to drive it around and show that you're considerably richer than everyone else. But you're right. You would get something efficient, maybe a hybrid, that suited your needs.
And it seems to me as well in that scenario, people are quite happy about that. They're quite happy to be seen in a city car because it makes perfect sense. But this doesn't seem to translate into the world of computers just yet. A lot of people who would be perfectly well served with that entry-level M1 MacBook Air are going out and buying these outrageously expensive machines, because these machines aren't pitched at consumers. That's the other thing. I'm not saying consumers shouldn't buy it. Buy whatever you want, of course, but these are pitched at professionals who are going to get all the tax rebates and everything else, so they're priced accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they are incidentally selling like hotcakes in certain professional areas, because they're saving so much time. If you're in iOS development or Android development, these things are really fast for compiling code. So lots of companies are buying into them.
Yeah. So, Apple Silicon is an option, but it's not the only option. And moving back to x86, the big boys have got so much tied up in the development of that architecture.
They have, and they're not going to just roll over.
Let it go, are they?
No.
And
that investment as well, what we see on the market today is the product of the last however many years of investment and development.
Possibly a decade.
Yeah.
Of actual infrastructure development.
So there's stuff that's in that pipeline of development that's still going to come out. So x86 has got a while yet.
And also Apple, we've just talked about even their entry-level. An Apple entry-level machine is not an entry-level budget machine, as we've touched on.
No.
And that's where you can still get an x86 laptop, be it a Chromebook or an HP or that are... Do Chromebooks use x86 chips?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so, a couple of £100.
Although we've tested one of those and it wasn't that great.
Yeah, we don't talk about that because that video doesn't exist anymore.
£500 or £600 though in the UK gets you a pretty reasonable laptop computer, but it won't get you a Mac laptop unless you're buying used. So yeah, there's huge areas of the market and huge areas of the world. I think is the key point here, where Apple is not able to provide computers for people.
They can't compete with the finances just don't work.
No, and I don't think they're going to make a cheap device.
No, we're very we're very aware that the sort of devices we're playing with are just unattainable for some people.
Yeah, and it's only by virtue of the fact that we need them for business. So the machines we bought for testing, incidentally, if you're curious, those get used within our business. We were buying them anyway, so we just get to use them for testing for a month before we hand them off to their new owners.
We haven't got like a stacked library of M1 Pros and Macs. No. And which one shall I use today?
And we definitely do not order stuff and then send it back after we've tested it. I don't agree with that. I just wanted to say as well, we were talking about the hype and having a bit of a reality check. This is just an opinion I'm going to offer, and I can't back it up with any actual science. But I noticed it when the M1 Mini, when I first got that, when I'd be using my Mac Pro that I had at the time, the trash can, and using the Mac Pro was buttery smooth. That's how it just never got in the way of what you were doing. Whereas the Mac Mini just wasn't as smooth, and I can't put my finger on what it was, but I'm finding the same thing with this laptop. And I find in Safari, if you've got a very busy web page, it's just a little bit laggy sometimes. And I had something really odd happening in Affinity Photo the other day as well, where it was just,
What was that?
I was cutting something out, using one of the tools, and it just kept glitching. And I was getting beach balls.
Sounds like software.
It probably is, and it's probably the fact that it's the new operating system.
But that is part of the point, isn't it? That we're talking about essentially a completely new architecture here, and the software that supports that is new. So your trash can was buttery smooth because it's a very robust, proven architecture, and the software on it has been developed over many years. This is all very new, so you can only expect that to get better and smoother. I nearly did your gesture then, by the way.
That's my gesture.
Yeah, well, it's normally with that hand.
It's not the usual gesture I use with you, though, Pete.
No, you can't do that.
No,
not without some pixelation.
No,
later,
I might upset
Tom.
my son as well. Well, look, it's really exciting. I think the x86 isn't dead. There's exciting things to come from Intel. Next year, AMD will be bringing out Zen 4 and new graphics cards. So the battle continues, and we'll win. If you love Apple, now you can enjoy an amazingly powerful computer here in the Apple ecosystem. But if you're also enjoying Windows, as I do, then there's lots of options coming there as well. And I just think it genuinely really is very exciting.
Definitely. Completely agree.
You're jigging away like you're about to do some kind of jingle, Pete.
I am, yeah, because
Okay.
it's time for the Rumour Mill. Rumour, what you got today? Hey, Dave.
That was abysmal. Those times where you just wish that you were
the
somewhere
ground
else.
would open up and swallow you. I think that about you all the time.
Right now, I know how Tom feels most of the time when I'm doing jokes and stuff. He's just please never do that again.
I won't do that one again. For season 3, I've got so much planned,
Have
but
you?
it requires some time to prepare.
I'm not looking forward to that at all. Anyway, the rumour
You
mill.
guys like it, don't you? You listeners love it. Maybe not my singing just then, but and I suspect that Freddie is spinning in his grave.
I should think so.
You liked it, didn't you, Aaron? No. Okay, even Aaron didn't like it. Maybe I apologise.
Awful.
Have we got any
Absolutely
rumours,
awful.
Dave?
We have got some rumours. Some people are saying that the next iPad Mini will have a ProMotion display. What do you think about that?
No.
Excellent. Care to elaborate?
I can't see it being. Why would they put that in the iPad Mini? I could be wrong on this, but at the end of the day, we're not going to see a new iPad Mini for a couple of years, maybe 2023. I would imagine they might respond to the Jelly Scroll thing with an uprated panel, but I can't see why would you put ProMotion in an entry level.
Well,
relatively entry level iPad. It's not the entry level, but
no, it's not actually. It's quite a bit more than the entry level iPad. And
but you get what I'm saying. It's not a pro device.
No, it's not. Could it do with a higher refresh rate? It definitely could if they're going to stick with the portrait orientation thing, which is what's happened with the Jelly Scroll. So previously, You can actually see. Now, I've been testing this. I've been really looking for it on the previous generation iPad Mini. If you hold it in landscape mode and you're quite aggressive with the up and down scrolling, you can see a jelly scroll effect. It's not as noticeable on the new as it is on the new one in portrait mode. And I actually, I'm going to confess now, I did in fact return my iPad Mini because I couldn't cope with it. It was making me feel sick.
It was making him very grouchy. I couldn't cope with it either, so I'm pleased you did that.
Well, it wasn't the jelly scrolling, because that only gets triggered when you're doing silly scrolling, which no one does in real life. What it was is, as I was scrolling down pages, it was making the text look like it was on the wonk, so it was slanted, and that was making me feel ill.
On the wonk. Thank you. You heard it here first, folks.
Anyway, I'm pretty upset about that because in every other respect it's absolutely fantastic. But for me personally, my eyes, it just didn't work for me. And I think I won't be the only one. I think I'm in a minority. I think most people won't be bothered by it, but there is certainly a minority that aren't buying it, and Apple will need to think about that. They'll need to make a change. Yeah,
absolutely.
But so we usually do the traffic light.
It. Well, based on the next rumour, I'm going to do this as an amber, but I think it's a very ready amber.
Okay. I think red. I don't think we'll get promotion on the iPad Mini next year. Maybe later. Who knows?
So I'm going to stick in a quick rumour now then, just so that we've got something that's not going to be red.
Okay.
Which is Apple will be bringing out a new iPhone next year.
Excellent. I'll give that a green.
Good. Okay.
So next in the rumour, Microsoft are bringing back Windows Phone.
Are they? Tell me more.
It's apparently going to be powered by a new power-efficient Intel chip.
Really? So you're
I can't do it. I can't even keep it. How do you do this? I can't keep a straight face. That's obviously nonsense.
Yeah, there are no power-efficient Intel chips. Imagine a Windows Phone powered by the Intel chip. You'd have the phone, and then you'd have a small wheelie case with a battery and a cooling system. You would be, if Windows were bringing back the phone, that would be the subject of a whole podcast because you loved it so much. Have you still got yours?
No. I did actually think about buying one just to... Because
cuddle at night.
You can still get them new old stock from China, but or fake, one of those things. The problem is they're just not supported, so why would you do it? You've just searched for Windows Phone.
I'm going to get you one. I am going to get you one because I'm sick of you griping on about it.
No, I don't want one. I think it's best left in the past because since that's happened, Apple has moved everything on anyway.
Yeah.
And so have Android. So it's one of those things that at the time, it was the best. Now, it wouldn't be, would it?
It's a bit like when you watch programs from your childhood that you remember fondly and you realise how absolutely awful they were.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite like that because I'm fairly confident I wouldn't think it was awful. I remember the Lumia 930, and it looked a lot like the current iPhones with its aluminium edge. Had an amazing camera in it for the time, and a really really lovely display. That was, it was a really nice device, and I loved the Windows interface as well. I just think it was good.
It's like you're waxing lyrical about a fond old girlfriend. She was so pretty. She had such a lovely sense of humour. Unfortunately, she didn't like me.
I did once go out with a girl who had 6 toes.
Did you really?
I did.
You're joking, aren't you? I'm not going to say where I think where she's from, but I can guess it's just up the motorway.
That's incredibly rude of you, Pete.
It's a regional local joke. We'll leave that alone. Anyway.
She was lovely. So obviously Microsoft are not bringing back Windows Phone. They're just doing Android devices, and I think that's really sad.
I agree. Any Android device is really sad. I'm going to get absolutely slaughtered for saying that, but there we go. I still haven't got a Pixel 6 or whatever it is yet.
I think we should get you a cheaper Android device and make you live with it for a week, and to the point where you need to lock away your iPhone. You actually have to use it as your phone.
Ooh, okay. Maybe if you'd like to see that.
I think everybody would. Everyone's already said that.
No, they haven't.
No
haven't.
one's going to object to seeing you suffer, Pete.
Everyone liked me. I'm the laurel to your Hardy.
Okay.
I guess we're probably drawing to a close. We probably need to talk about plans for the next couple of weeks because we are rudely drawing to the end of 2021.
We are. So I think we'll be around next week. So we should have a podcast next week. But the week after that, you've rudely decided to naff off on holiday.
I am taking a few days out. I might do some content while I'm away for when I get back. I might not. Depends how I feel. Depends what the weather's like.
Okay. And I don't have my calendar in front of me, so I don't know if that takes us to the end of November or not. But the last podcast of the year, we'll have a season finale, which will be the first Tuesday in December, and we're going to do that live. That's the plan at the moment.
And we're going to dress up. Going to wear dress up smartly, bow ties and everything.
Really?
I think we should. I think we should do something to sort of commemorate the end of the season.
I don't want to wear a bow tie.
We don't have to wear a bow tie.
I don't want to wear a
string
suit.
vest, something like that.
String vest.
Yeah. Push the boat out. We'll do something. Maybe a hat.
We'll do something. Yeah, and so hopefully that will be interesting. Anyway, get your questions together because we'll try and answer your questions. Pete will actually have his notebook, and we can maybe do some testing if you want to fire something at us. We'll try and answer it live on the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Preferably for a question, not a cruise missile. But yeah. Anyway, I guess that's the end of this podcast. It's been about an hour, so thanks for listening.
Thank you, everybody.
Watching, or both.
Indeed. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Press the like button. Maybe share the podcast with someone you like, you think might enjoy it, or share it with someone you hate, who you know will hate it.
Yeah. And as iCave Dave often says, give my bell a little tickle.
I don't think he does say that.
He does.
I don't think anybody says that.
Ring my bell. That's what he says.
Yeah, but that's a bit different from tickling it, isn't it?
Well, if you tickle it, with most touchscreens, that'll probably activate it. And then YouTube may occasionally let you know when new content's been published. Doesn't always.
I can't understand why any of you listen or watch this, but there we go. Thank you. Anyway.
We're pleased you do, otherwise we'd be talking to no one.
Apart from Tom and Erin. We'd be talking to no one.
They've both walked out. They've gone. Anyway.
Thank you, everybody, and see you next week on the Constant Geekery podcast.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.